and we got our guests, Karin Ann Smith. And Mrs. Smith, how you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Dan.
You know, you're a South African expat living in Texas, and you got exposed the genocide going on in Africa there.
Well, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to make the world aware of it,
Sure.
because there seems to be a total media blackout on anything that's gone on in South Africa after the end of apartheid in 1994. The world seems to think that Nelson Mandela was a saint and everything is beautiful in the Rainbow Nation. But I'm here to tell you that it is not.
Oh, yeah, and I heard you on shows. I was listening to some of your podcasts and the radio shows that you're on, and you're very passionate and determined to tell the truth, and I love your style. I mean, like, I share the same style, yeah, and I love it. And you got a very great motivation into exposing the stuff.
Yes, I have, Dan, because I've lived there all my life, and my mother and two of my brothers are still in South Africa. My father was killed by an attack on the farm September last year, and the world just turns a blind eye. In the last year, there has been one farmer killed a day in South Africa. And what you have to understand is that South Africa is very little bigger than Texas. And if there were 52 murders a day and 45,000 rapes in 20 days in Texas, this country would be on fire and the world press would be having a field day. But it seems to be okay in South Africa, and I don't understand why.
I mean, yeah.
I just cannot understand why nobody's looking.
I don't either. I mean, this is crazy, and especially when people are dying.
Well, in the last 20 years, there have been 90,000 white people murdered, horribly, tortured and murdered, burnt with irons, drowned in boiling water, forced to watch their wives and daughters raped with broken bottles. It is unbelievable atrocity upon atrocity that is happening there. 90,000 people. That's more than all killed in the wars that America has been involved in that same period of time. And it's fine. Nobody says a word about it. Nobody, except the poor South Africans that are living it every day.
Wow.
It just, none of it makes sense to me. If it were happening anywhere else, surely the press would be making a huge outcry. Surely the 3 million remaining whites would have been classified as refugees and been given another country to live in. But not for these poor people.
That's unbelievable. And, I mean, like, and they rather go pay more attention to dumb things like the media. You'll never hear the media talking about this. They rather tell you that Santa Claus is coming to the farm this week. You know.
Absolutely, and that scares me. That the media directs attention away from the things that really matter because it's either not politically correct or politically expedient to talk about it. But what is happening in South Africa is a white genocide. Professor Gregory Stanton from Genocide Watch, which is a USA-based organization, he was very, very, very outspoken against apartheid. And last year, he went on a tour of South Africa to find out what was happening. When he came back, he put South Africa on a scale of 6, on a scale of 6 out of 8 on the Genocide Watch list. 6 means preparation. 7 is the actual carrying out of the genocide, and 8 is the cover-up and denial of it. So South Africa is at stage 6 of genocide. The United Nations, the governments of the world, including US, Edmond, Australians, UK, none of them will wake up and pay attention. They have had letters sent, they have had photographs sent, they have been begged to help the remaining 3 million people, whites in South Africa. And the answer to all of that is silence. Absolute dead silence. Nobody wants to help these people. And worst of all, Dan, they have been excluded from the workforce. So they have been what you would call here AA laws in South Africa. They're called Black Economic Empowerment laws in South Africa to protect 50 million blacks from 3 million whites in the workplace. They are absolutely by law excluded from the workplace. There are jobs in the municipalities, which are your town councils, and in the parliament and in civil service, that the government has said leave those posts empty rather than give them to qualified whites. So there are hundreds of posts throughout the country, important ones, just left empty because there are no qualified blacks and they refuse to give them to whites. And the end result of that has been that whites who were previously middle class, because they don't have jobs, have slowly but surely been dispossessed of their vehicles, their life savings, their homes. And then they had nowhere to go because the government refuses to give grants to white people. So they don't have any access to Social Security, and there are almost a third of the remaining whites in South Africa are now living in squatter camps, which are little pieces of ground where they have built little houses made of corrugated iron or tents or whatever they have available, no running water, no electricity, no toilets, no access to anything, and that is how they are living. 850,000 previously middle-class, ordinary white workers are living in abject poverty. And the government has now said that if you give charity to a white charity, you will lose your tax benefits. So they've cut them off even from that, from charity. You were talking earlier about not being able to feed the homeless in America. Well, in South Africa, you can't do that either. You cannot help them in any way or your tax benefits will be messed with. So these people are absolutely helpless and hopeless.
Oh, that's crazy.
And I want to know, how do I help them? How can I wake the world up, wake the government up, wake your admin up, and see there is a genocide, there is atrocity, there is murder, there is hunger, there's starvation, there's illness, right there under your noses. Please do something to help.
Well, here in our
I don't know
country,
what else I can do.
Our government, I mean, they love what's going on because they won't lift a finger. They love that the point that they're killing their own people off, and now they're adding to the fact that they're giving vaccines to all the South African countries, so it kills off the population. Because even Henry Kissinger said that killing off the African population because of the rich minerals and whatnot they have there that the United States needs, it is a good thing, and it's part of the world depopulation. That's why Bill Gates is leading the charge and giving vaccines to the third world countries and all that, because they want mass genocide to kill off the whites and the blacks, and they pump vaccines that attack the black people even more than white people. So they want everybody killed off, and that's why you'll never see the United Nations or the United States of America lift a finger to help.
Well, for me, to count 3.5 million people as collateral damage so that you can get access to the country's riches, their gold, copper, steel, manganese, emeralds, diamonds, that is an absolute crime against humanity. It's a disgrace that they should just be collateral damage. But I'm beginning to think that that's exactly what it is. They are considered a fair number of deaths for the end game. But it's awful that I can't. I don't know what to say.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and then the president stands up. Myself, The president stands up before a meeting of parliament and sings a song called "Bring Me My Machine Gun" so that we can kill the whites and drive them into the sea.
Wow.
And it's fine. It's fine to do that. It's perfectly okay. It's not incitement to murder or anything. You know, Dan, I know I have a lot of words, but I get so desperate for the lack of future that those people have and the lack of help that's coming from anywhere. And I'm one voice crying in the wilderness, and I don't know what I can do more than what I'm doing to help them. We have fundraisers to do a Christmas party for the kids in the squatter camps. We have a program every single Monday at noon called Voices of South Africa, where we have actual South Africans on the ground in South Africa on telling their stories. We are trying to make a difference. But if the administration turns a deaf ear, what can a select group of people do?
Well, that's what they want you to feel. They want you to feel powerless and your efforts are futile. But the fact of the matter is, just by you, I mean, you being on just one radio show that's reaching to the ears of people, you know, thousands or millions, whoever's listening, and being on the show and just being out and, you know, voicing your voice out like you do, you're having grave effect. You're having a great effect here, and people are listening. And again, they want you to make you feel like you're futile, but you're not. I mean, you're having a great effect, and keep doing what you're doing because God's behind you, and you're on the right side of history. So keep doing what you're doing.
Well, I'm never going to give up. I will keep on talking. I mean, there are a million things I can tell you about South Africa, but I don't know what would be of interest to you. In particular, I can. There's so much I can tell you. There was a white squatter camp where the whites had set up a camp and they'd lived there for a couple of years, and they had made it fairly comfortable and reasonable for themselves. But the black government decided that they would not be there and gave them an area on a rubbish tip on the outskirts of a black squatter camp. And they built them government houses there, which they moved them into last week. These houses are made of corrugated iron. No windows, no lights, no floors. They have the dirt floor, which is the rubbish tip, which was originally there. They have got nothing, no electricity, no water. One porta potty for 10 houses. And they have moved these people in there. I have got the most astonishingly sad pictures of these emaciated old people lying on a mattress on these dirt floors. And they are hopeless because they have access to nothing. They can't get a food. They can't get anything. And being ill in South Africa and white, well, no, being ill in South Africa in any color, the government hospitals, you go to hospital, you have to take your own mattress, which they put on the floor and force you to share it with another patient. You have to take your own sheets, your own blankets, your own food, your own medication. So why you go to hospital at all, I'm not very sure.
I was just going to ask that.
They have nothing available, but billions of rands go to medical every year from the taxpayers' pockets, but they never reach where they're supposed to be going.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. What's the point of a hospital? You might as well just stay home and.
They think that a doctor will help them. I mean, everybody thinks that, don't they? When you're sick, you go to hospital.
Yeah.
So they go, and well, it's a death sentence just going there. But if you're desperate and hoping that somebody will help you, then you go. But it is. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. The roads have decayed into potholes the size of cars, and they have toll fees in that country like you cannot even begin to believe. On a trip from Johannesburg to Durban, which is about 5 hours drive, you pay more in toll fees than you pay for your gas to get there. And yet the roads are huge, enormous, huge potholes. And there's no chance of them ever being fixed. In fact, one municipality put a notice in the newspaper of how to fix the potholes outside your house, because they know they're never going to do it. So if you don't want that pothole outside your house to grow into such a big hole that it swallows your whole driveway, then go fix it, but follow our directions. Have you ever heard of a country like that?
Yeah, well, so our country's starting to form like that. Yeah, but, with these, the agendas from the globalists.
Yeah.
I mean, that's horrifying. And those camps, that sounds horrifying. Being squeezed into that small amount of space and being, you have to share, what would you say, you had to share a bathroom with how many people? Like the whole camp or something?
A porta potty. There's no bathrooms. They have a porta potty, one for each 10 houses. There are no bathrooms, no running water, no electricity, no means of heating, no means of ventilation. Nothing, Dan, nothing. Just a tin hut. And you know how hot it gets in this country. Can you imagine a corrugated iron hut with no ventilation in the heat? And it rained there last night, and I saw this morning of the streams of water through the holes in the so-called roofs onto the dirt floors that aren't even compacted dirt, they just loose dirt. I mean, we treat our animals better than that in this country.
Yeah. That's
hard. I can tell you, for 3 days, I can tell you horror stories about that country, and it is frightening. A friend of mine this morning posted that her son was crossing the road outside of his work, and a guy next to him saw a gap in the traffic and ran. He was hit by the first car that didn't stop and drove away, driven over by a second car that didn't stop and drove away, and the third one was a truck that drove over him and carried on going. They called the ambulance came. All that was they're lucky the ambulance came, let me tell you, because they don't normally. But all that there was in the ambulance was a stretcher. No first aid, nothing. Just a stretcher, which they loaded him on and took him to hospital, while people stood at that traffic light and photographed the whole thing on their cell phones. And this is a daily occurrence in South Africa.
Wow. Sounds like Beirut on steroids.
It is pretty much like that. There's another story I can tell you about a school in South Africa. The area where the school was redistricted. So it went into a different district than the one that it previously was in. The blacks in the original district got really mad because they said their taxes had paid for that school. So in a week's time, they demolished the entire building. There is nothing left but the ground floor concrete slab. That is all that is left of that school in 1 week. They drove up in trucks with wheelbarrows. They took every last brick, toilet, window, light fitting, everything. There is not a thing left of that school. So now nobody has a school to go to.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even know South Africa was that bad. I mean, this is...
Dan, people don't know. And that's what the problem is. Nobody knows because nobody makes it public. In South Africa, they passed a law saying that you may not report on crimes and you may not publish crime statistics. The government will do that if and when they feel like it. So about every 18 months, they release the rah-rah us, look our crime is falling statistics, which are doctored and nobody believes them. But even by their measure, 52 murders a day happen in South Africa, and they consider that a victory. It's a good thing. 52 a day. Now, by other standards that I've read, it's up to 96 a day. I can't tell you which figure is correct, because how do you get numbers? And in a country where they are killing the farmers, I mean, we originally had 120,000 farmers. We now have about 40,000, I think, left. And farm attacks happen all the time where they kill the entire family on the farm. Now, those murders, on the death certificate, they put died by natural causes. So it is almost impossible to find out real figures on what is going on in South Africa, because a murder with a guy who's been tortured to death is natural causes. So it is very hard to have facts and figures at your fingertips. There are a couple of websites that publish every single murder, where, when, how many people. And it's frightening. It is absolutely frightening. And then, on top of that, they pass a law that every farmer has to give 50% of his property to his black laborers. Now, how do you think a farm can be productive if you give half of it away?
Yeah, really, and there's no room for a profit. Probably couldn't even stay
No. And apart from that, they had the land distribution before this, where any black who could say that his ancestor had grazed a goat on your farm 200 years ago now had a claim to your property. And while that claim was being processed, which could take up to 5 years, there was no point in proving your property or doing anything because, A, you couldn't sell it, B, you were not allowed to take even an air conditioner out of your property while the claim was being processed. And so the farmers basically just kept the thing just going, and then they had to hand it over to the blacks. And those farms that have been handed over to the blacks are totally non-productive. Nothing is grown on them. Nothing is exported. So a country that used to supply food to most of the world, we exported fruit and vegetables almost worldwide. They are having, for the first time in history, to import food to feed their people, because the farms have been taken from the farmers and given to the blacks who do nothing with them.
Wow, sounds like it's just a dying population, and plus the interference with the United Nations as well with the vaccines. I mean, like the way it's going just sounds like all of Africa, South Africa is just going to be annihilated. I mean, it's just horrifying. And there's in your bio here, you talked about your farms being attacked by AK-47 wielding gangs, and I guess your dad passed away through this.
Yeah, last year in September.
Oh, sorry to hear
and
that.
when my parents it's very hard to talk about, but when they called the police said, "Can you identify your attackers by name?" And my mother, who is 85 and was fairly hysterical because my father and my brother had been shot, she said no, she couldn't. And so they said, "Well, then we can't help you." And they didn't even come and open a case. They did nothing.
Wow.
They did nothing. And my father's death certificate says died of natural causes.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's sad. You know, God bless them. I mean,
but it's not, Dan, it's not just my family. There is not a white family in South Africa that hasn't been touched in one way or another by violence. I mean, we have big signs up on our roads in South Africa that say, "Caution, hot hijacking spot." Now, in this country, they knew that was a spot that was famous for hijacking. They would have police there until it stopped. Not in South Africa. Not in South Africa. Sorry, this is your problem, just the big hijacking. So I have a very good friend in South Africa who was hijacked and driven around in the trunk of her car and taken to the ATM, forced to draw what she could for that day, driven around some more in the trunk of her car, and until after midnight when she could draw the next day's money, taken to draw that money, put back in the trunk of the car, driven around for 6 hours to some spot in the bush where they hauled her out of the car. The 4 of them raped her and then raped her with a wheel spanner and left her there for dead. They took her car and left her there. And she saw lights on the highway and crawled with her insides in her hand to the road. where a black man stopped and covered her in a blanket and took her to the hospital. And it is no thanks to anybody except that black man that she survived.
Yeah.
But if you talk to any white South African, every one of them has been touched by mugging, hijacking, carjacking, murder, robbery, you name it, it's happened. There is not a South African family that can't tell you a terribly sad story of what has happened to them. It is unbelievable, the silence in the rest of the world. And we have taken cases to the International Criminal Court against the president for singing these songs, and against a young up-and-coming politician called Julius Malema, who also sings a song called Kill the Boer, which is farmer, which extended means kill the whites. We went to the International Criminal Court and laid a case, and we've heard nothing from them. We have gone to Amnesty International. We have been to all the governments of the UK, USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, begging them to allow these people in as refugees. Nothing. Silence. 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 So somebody like me and the other few of us that are willing to do this are getting on every single radio show we can, wherever we can, and speaking out as much as we can to try and reach that one person who has the authority and the ability and the willingness to do something about this.
That's horrible. And, you know what I mean? It makes you wish that, they had a Second Amendment there, so that people could protect themselves. But, this right here, this story, everybody listening here, this story right here, this is a result. This could happen here in the United States if you give up your Second Amendment. And we're not saying whites against blacks or whatever. We're not doing that. And that's not what she's promoting either.
No.
She's not promoting that either. But the thing is, the point is you give up your weapons, folks. This is exactly what's going to happen here in America. And I'm sorry to hear about your dad. That's really sad. But, if you want to hold there for a minute, I got to go to break.
Sure, Dan.
All right, thank you, Karin. We'll be right back on the Truth Radio Show on freedomizerradio.com. And we're back on the Truth Radio Show with Dan Bidondi. TruthRadioShow.com is our website, and we're joined here with our guest, Karin Ann Smith, an expat, South African living in Texas here. Now, Karin, do you want to explain what an expat is? I mean, I had to actually look that up myself last night.
Oh, okay. An expat is a previous inhabitant of South Africa. So I'm an expat South African. I am from South Africa, but I don't live there anymore. I now live in Texas.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a Brit and you come to the USA, you're an expat Brit living in the USA.
Yeah, because when I first got your bio, I thought it said expert, but it was a mistype, and Kevin Laprade goes,
No. I'm not an expert in anything. But Dan, I wanted to talk to you about firearms. You just mentioned a very important thing
Sure.
there. In South Africa, from birth, you have an identity number, which follows you throughout your life. It has always been that way. And attached to your identity number is your driver's license, your marriage license, your gun license. Now, under the white government in South Africa, you had to get a gun license, which was registration of firearms. And we never had a problem with that. Everybody who had a firearm had to have a license for it, and it was put in your identity book that you had a license for however many firearms, which was all fine until the ANC government took over. They then had the records of everybody who owned a firearm, what they owned, how many they owned, and where they lived. Because if you change address in South Africa, there's a little form you fill in and send it in to update the government's records. And being a very law-abiding country, which we were, most people did that. So when the ANC government took over, they decided that it was a good idea to confiscate firearms. So they had this fabulously convoluted scheme where if your surname began with this, you had these to hand it in and so on. And most people, like sheep, went and handed in their firearms. I don't see how they could have evaded that, however, because the government knew where you lived, who you were, and what firearms you owned. So they went and handed them in. Now, the theory was that you could reapply for a new license under the new government. Well, people have been waiting up to 17 years to get their new firearm licenses from the government. And in the meantime, the police have been selling those firearms on the street. So who is armed and dangerous in South Africa? So criminals are armed and dangerous. And then last week I read a report saying that thousands of weapons have been stolen from the military. So it is not law-abiding citizens who have those firearms. It is criminals who have them. And I see that very clearly to America.
Yeah, I was just going to say that
then
you're painting the whole story of what's going on here in America. I mean, Operation Fast and Furious,
Yes.
they were giving weapons to the Mexican gun truck cartels to blame us, law-abiding citizens in our gun shows. And, I mean, people,
Exactly.
I was just talking about in the last hour, she's reinnovating what is going to, what took place in South Africa. It will take place here if you turn in your firearms.
Absolutely. And I will tell you the end result. The end result of that is a disarmed, helpless citizenship. Because in South Africa, the law says that if somebody breaks into your house through the roof at 3 o'clock in the morning and tells you that he is looking for work, you may not defend yourself against him. And if you do, you will be arrested, not the person who broke into your house. Now, a friend of mine had a daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, and her mom was divorced, so they were in the house alone at night. And the daughter heard noises coming from her mother's bedroom. She went to investigate, and her mother was being raped by a black man. So she took the bedside table and hit the black on his head with it and knocked him unconscious. That 14-year-old child is in jail today for attacking that black rapist.
That's crazy. And, and that shows you, you'll have to actually kill somebody because it's your word against theirs. And if they're dead, if someone breaks into your house, it's like basically you have to kill them.
Well, then you'll go to jail for murder.
Oh, wow.
There's no two ways about it. You will go to jail for murder. There's a case right now about a farm attack where the farmer shot 3 of them. And the farmer is arrested and is in jail for murder. He was defending his family and his property, knowing full well that they did not break into his house to rob him. They broke into his house to murder him and his family. And so he shot them. And he is in jail for triple murder right now.
Wow, that's crazy. And folks, again,
and that is,
I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but she's telling you what's going on in South Africa. And this is all because the citizens don't have firearms and they can't defend themselves. And this relates to everything I was talking about in the first hour with these Nazi gun controls that try to push in this country. And please continue, Karin. I mean, with the explain how important firearms are for the American, for people worldwide, to defend themselves in their lives.
You must never, ever, ever fall for any trick or any law, anything that disarms you, because the next law that is going to be passed is going to make it impossible for you to defend yourself. And I've lived this. I lived this in Rhodesia. I lived this in Namibia. I lived it in South Africa. And here we go again in America, my new home. Exactly the same thing is happening. And do not say it cannot happen here. It has happened everywhere. And it is happening here. This huge gun grab in New York, it's happening in the United States of America, right under your noses. And in, was it Connecticut, where they lined up in their dozens to hand their firearms in? Was it Connecticut where that happened recently? Yes, it was Connecticut. Well, it's going to happen. And if you let these people have their way, you are going to be sitting ducks to be wiped out as the white population of South Africa is being wiped out. The history of the two countries are so similar, it is frightening. There are more similarities between the American history and the South African history than there are differences. We both fought the British over taxation without representation. We both climbed into covered wagons and trekked into the interior to get away from the British. Both fought the local populations. You fought the Indians and we fought the Zulus. Our histories are so similar, and I just see it converging again, except now it's my past that is going to become your future. And you are leaving yourself open to murder and mayhem if you let them take your firearms away.
You're right.
I cannot even begin to explain to you what the end result of that will be.
Oh, you're right. And I don't know if you listened to the last hour when I was talking about the United Nations, them declaring, the treaties going to effect December 24th here in America, and they're hell-bent on pushing gun control in America. And everything you describe South Africa is basically, that's the writings on the wall, folks, that you need to look into. What she just said, that's the writings on the wall, what's going to happen in this country. And in this country, it's going to be both whites and blacks that are going to be the people being killed by our own government, Homeland Security and such, because we're under a grave threat, folks. And the Second Amendment, and Karin, to you're from South Africa and all that, but as an American now, how important to you is the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights here?
It is vitally important for your survival as a family, as a city, as a country. It is vital, because the Japanese said, do not attack the American mainland because there's a gun behind every blade of grass. And that has been your safety. And that will continue to be your safety until you allow them to take your guns away. And that is the best that I can tell you about it. They disarmed us, and we are being murdered in our thousands. 90,000 people dead, never to see the light of day again, simply because we are not allowed to defend ourselves.
And as Edmond Burke quoted, one of the founding fathers, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And folks, if you don't pay attention to this history now, you are going to repeat that with the people, the poor people in South Africa are going through right now. So, I mean, this is the writings on the wall, the lessons you need to learn right now. I don't care if you're a liberal, it doesn't matter what party you are. The Second Amendment covers liberal, Republican, whatever the hell you want to be. All right, it's not about parties, folks. It's about your life, your family's life, and the survival of our Bill of Rights and our way of life here in the United States. So it doesn't matter what you are. You need to stop what you're doing and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to support the Second Amendment, not because, and it's not just a Republican thing. It's a founding father thing, because they weren't Republicans or Democrats. They were independents who believed in liberty and freedom. So you need to get behind that banner, not the Republican or Democratic banner, but the banner of 1776. That's the banner you need to get behind, because we're going to repeat everything that's going through South Africa. Germany went through it. Poland went through it. All the Middle East just about. I mean, like Kissinger said it so many times, how Kissinger and the other globalists talked about disarming the American people to push a new world order. And the Americans, folks, you need to realize that your Second Amendment is the only roadblock that's stopping the new world order from taking place here in the United States. Because once they get the U.S., it's over. It's game over, end game, period. And Karin, I'm lost for words of those. I can only imagine the poor. Those people, the stuff that they're going through, I don't even have words to come out to describe it. And it really breaks my heart to even know that people are being killed because they can't defend themselves. And I just pray to God that some liberal right now that loves gun control is listening to this and actually reanalyzes what they're about.
Yes, you must. You must listen. This country must wake up and listen. They have been asleep for far too long and didn't realize what they had, and now it's gone. And it's very hard to get back something that's been taken away from you. Once you've given up your gun rights, you are going to struggle for the next 100 years to get them back. And once you've given up your freedom of speech, you will probably never get it back. Because they have censored the papers, they have censored the people in South Africa to such a huge degree that you can see yourself. Nothing about what I'm telling you is out there because they have censored them. They have shut their mouths. Now, it looks like in this country, a lot of the mainstream media are self-censored. They choose what they want to publish and what they don't. I don't think it's censorship laws that are doing it, but it is an assault on the First Amendment. And it has to be stopped now before it's too late, because once it's gone, getting it back is going to be near impossible. And I don't want to see families in this country suffering like my family. Sorry.
Oh, you're right.
And other families in South Africa have suffered. I don't want to see it here. I have fled from it 3 times in my lifetime. And I don't want to have it happen to me in my 60s, a 4th time. People, you have to listen. If you don't want to pay attention to what is happening in South Africa, at least defend your own country from it happening here, because they are trying. They are trying desperately hard to take your rights away.
Well, Karin, I just want to let you know one thing, Karin. I could speak for millions of Americans who are on this right side of liberty. We will die first before that happens to you again. And I guarantee that I will die first before you have to live under that tyranny again. Because, like George Washington said, like I said earlier in the last hour, we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. And I'll be damned. I'll die first before these tyrannical scumbags come in and take our gun rights. And I promise you, I'll do everything in my power, and people like us, that we will not let you live through that again here in America. This is America, home, land of the free, home of the brave, and the brave are standing up, and we want to be free, and we're going to stay free, and we're going to send a message to all those globals out there. You are not taking our guns, and if you try, you're going to start a war you are not win, because remember, this history shows we were only 3% back in the day. We defeated the world's strongest and largest standing army in the entire world, and we will do it again. Now we got well over 50% of Americans now awake. We will demolish the New World Order. If everybody was to come together right now and wake up, we would slaughter them. And it's coming to that. It's coming to that, Karin. I'm telling you, I see a great awakening coming. That
I know. I see it.
And Karin, Kevin LaPrada, my co-host here, he's just joined us now. He just wanted to chime in and say hello to you.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Karin. Hey, Karin. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And you?
Oh, I'm okay. Just got in. I'm a little late. I was listening to you for about half an hour there. I just wanted to say sorry to hear about your father, and I'm sorry about the history of your past there. But I'm glad you're safer now, and I'm with Dan. I will die before it happens here. I will gladly lay my life on the line to stop it, in its tracks.
It may come to that. That's what I fear most, is that it will come to that, because the forces against you are huge and powerful and rich. And the people have been asleep for a very long time. And slowly but surely their rights have been eroded and eroded and eroded. And I have seen a great awakening. But the thing that I fear the most is the surge of anger that is so almost palpable in this country. You can feel it in everybody that you speak to. Absolute volcanic anger. And it's not going to take a very big thing to set that lot alight. And that scares me.
Exactly. And,
because nobody wants
big
that.
And all that, but you know what? We got history on our side, we got right on our side, and most of all, we got God on our side. And with that alone, we can overcome the largest of odds. And and when it doesn't matter when it's all over, we know who wins in the end. We know when God comes back, he triumphs over this evil, and it's all done completely. And sure, they'll get the New World Order for a short time, but it doesn't mean we're not going to resist it. The whole point is, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the smoke is clear, our Lord and Savior, Yeshua Messiah, Jesus Christ, is going to stand tall, and it's going to be the death of the New World Order. So we might die today. I mean, any of us could die today in this fight against this tyranny, but the thing is, our spirit will live on through the next person and the people listening, and ultimately, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah, has the ultimate victory in the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely, he does. And we do have right on our side, because I cannot believe this is God's plan for his people. I cannot believe it. But he also did not say, sit down and roll over and play dead. He said, you fight. You fight. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar, unto God what is God's. But
Amen.
For me, America is the last bastion of freedom in this world. It is the shining city atop the hill where everybody wants to be. Because the example that you have set for the world is something that I admire immensely. You Americans are strange people from my point of view, but incredible people at the same time. The kindest, warmest-hearted, giving, but also the most stubborn people that I have ever met.
Yeah, you got that.
And if America goes, the world is lost.
Yeah.
And it is up to every single freedom-loving, God-fearing American to stand up and say no more. No more. Because if you don't, it is not just the U.S. that has gone. It is the hope of the entire world that stays with you. And that is a big load to carry on your shoulders. Because the world looks to you for guidance, for help, for leadership, for everything. In the last couple of years, it's been sadly lacking, but I do believe that it can be fixed. And if you go, there's no hope for the rest of the world, none whatsoever. And so I pray nightly, and I pray fervently that God will strengthen the American people and waken them to what is happening, and that they can achieve a constitutional republic again without violence.
Well, that's what we're pushing for. I mean, Hillary Clinton admitted that they're losing the information war, but that's what we push all the time. We don't want to fire a shot. You know, the thing is, whoever fires the first shot's going to lose. But the thing is, we try to promote a peaceful information war, which information, truth, could bring down a standing army easily. You know, like I tell people all the time, the ray of hope of this, yes, the globalists have millions and millions of unlimited dollars and all this stuff, but the thing is, they can have millions of dollars, years and years of planning, but 5 minutes of truth could destroy 10 years of their planning easily. 5 minutes of truth would destroy...
Absolutely.
And
there are more and more people.
And you're such an inspirational person, and you've been through hell and back, and you're trying to warn. I mean, I believe that God is using you to say, hey, he showed you these bad things for a reason, so you can warn other people if they don't turn from their ways, do what's right. This is going to happen to you. And Karin, I believe you'd be getting a great gift from God. I know you've seen some horrible stuff, but it's turned into a good gift so you could go around the world to tell people, hey, if you don't listen to this, this is what's going to happen to you.
Well, it's people like you, Dan, that give me the opportunity to speak to people. In my little house, in an unknown little village, in the lost places in the Panhandle of Texas, my word would never get out without people like you who are willing to give me the opportunity to speak truth to other people and to try and wake the world up that America is precious. America is so very, very important. We cannot afford to lose our freedoms here, because as you go, so goes the world. And you are still the hope of millions of people everywhere, and you need to take that seriously and give them reason to believe in you. And again, because they've lost a lot of belief in America because of the last 6 years. But we can turn it around. I saw it in this election. It can be turned around. We can make it right, and you can make it the bastion of freedom again.
Amen.
But we need to put God back in first.
Exactly.
We need to put God back in first, not have the Democrats who boo God at their invention. God back in this country and people on their knees, and things will start turning around.
As I quoted from George Washington earlier, it is impossible to rightly govern a nation without God and the Bible. And Abraham Lincoln said, I believe the Bible is the best gift God has ever given to man. All the good of the Savior of the world is communicating to us through the book called the Bible. And those are two former presidents, founder fathers of the United States of America here, saying, hey, we need God to prosper this nation. And listening to people like Karin, who's been to hell and back from other countries, to warn you people out there, listen, we need to take the lessons learned in history and not repeat them. As Edmond Burke says, those who don't know history do them repeat it. We need to do that. And the Bible also says our people are destroyed by the lack of knowledge because they chose to reject the truth. And that's what's going on today. People are trying to ignore the truth. They're sticking their heads in the sand because they refuse to listen to the truth. And they're going to allow this to happen. But the thing is, there's a huge resistance. There's people like us standing up against this stuff. And we are going to win. We will defeat the New World Order in the end. And Karin, you got about a few minutes left if you want to promote any books you got, your websites, and what have you, in your last words.
There are two very, very good websites to go to. The one is our Voices of South Africa, where you will find daily atrocities that happen in South Africa, but also Rays of Hope, and you'll find details of our Monday radio program. And there is another one called The Truth About South Africa on Facebook, where they post every single minute of the day details of what is going on in South Africa. If you're interested or disbelieving or want to help, go to either of those sites and you will see where you can help. And thank you very much for giving me a voice.
And Karin, God bless you. I want to have you back on and again because the information, I know you got like hours more of information, but, due to lack of time and all that, but I want to have you back on again in the future. And God bless you. And, again, whatever we could do to help you out. And if I had the money, I would definitely donate and help these guys out. But, my hearts and prayer go out to all those people suffering in South Africa.
Thank you very, very much, Dan, and I would love to come on your show again. Maybe next time I will bring a voice from somebody who is in South Africa on the ground doing activist work there.
Absolutely, yeah, just talk to Kevin. We'll set up a date, and if you want to do that, that'd be great. And we'll set up a date for you. So just get into contact with Kevin, and we'll work that out.
Thanks very much, Dan, and thank you, Kevin.
Of course.
Good
no
night.
problem, Karin. Nice to talk to you.
Good night.
Good night, Karin.
Bye.